This is one of the deadliest early conflicts in Nevada history, and most people have never heard of it. In 1860, long before Nevada became a state, violence erupted along the Truckee River and the shores of Pyramid Lake. What followed became known as the Pyramid Lake War, a short but brutal conflict that exposed the real cost of westward expansion. The story begins at a place called Williams Station. Williams Station was a small trading post and toll bridge near the Truckee River, east of present-day Reno. It sat on land traditionally used by the Northern Paiute people, who depended on the river and Pyramid Lake for food, trade, and survival. By 1860, pressure on that land had become unbearable. Settlers, prospectors, and traders were moving through Paiute territory in growing numbers. Livestock trampled fishing grounds, water sources were diverted, and violence between settlers and native communities was becoming more common. At Williams Station, tensions reached a breaking point. Accounts differ, but what is clear is that Paiute women were abused and mistreated at the station. In response, a group of Northern Paiute men attacked Williams Station in May of 1860. Several settlers were killed and the station was burned. The news spread fast. Rather than pause or investigate, settler communities reacted with fear and anger. Calls went out for retaliation. Militias were formed almost overnight in Virginia City and Carson City, made up of miners and volunteers with little training but plenty of confidence. They were about to march into territory they didn't understand, against people who knew every inch of it. The first militia force moved toward Pyramid Lake, expecting a quick show of force. They were wrong. On May 12, 1860, Northern Paiute warriors led by Numaga met the militia near the lake. Numaga was not just a war leader, he was a strategist who understood terrain, timing, and restraint. The militia was disorganized. Many men were poorly armed, poorly supplied, and unfamiliar with the desert. They advanced without proper scouting, assuming superiority. Numaga used the land against them. Paiute forces drew the militia into open ground, cut off their movement, and attacked with discipline and coordination. The militia collapsed under pressure. More than 70 militia members were killed, making it one of the deadliest defeats suffered by settler forces in early Nevada history. It was a decisive Paiute victory, but it didn't end the conflict. The defeat shocked settler communities and territorial authorities. Instead of stepping back, they escalated. A second, much larger force was assembled, this time with federal involvement and better organization. Supplies were secured, command structures were formalized. The goal was no longer retaliation, it was suppression. In June of 1860, this second force marched toward Pyramid Lake. The fighting that followed was more evenly matched. The militia advanced cautiously, and Numaga understood the cost of prolonged war. Rather than risk the destruction of his people, he chose to withdraw and avoid a drawn-out conflict. The second battle did not end with another decisive Paiute victory, but it marked the turning point. Soon after, negotiations followed. Numaga later became an advocate for peace, even traveling to California and Washington to argue for the rights and safety of his people. The war officially ended, but the pressure did not. The aftermath of the Pyramid Lake War reshaped northern Nevada. Settler expansion continued. Native lands were increasingly restricted. Reservations were established, often without consent. The Northern Paiute people survived, but at tremendous cost. And slowly the story faded. The Pyramid Lake War doesn't fit neatly into heroic frontier myths. It doesn't portray settlers as victims or progress as painless. It shows something harder to face, that Nevada's early growth came through conflict, displacement, and resistance. Today, Pyramid Lake is still there, vast, silent, and striking. It remains sacred to the Northern Paiute people, who continue to live, govern, and protect their land. The war matters because it reminds us that Nevada history didn't begin with casinos or railroads. It began with land, with water, with power. And whose story gets remembered. This wasn't just a battle. It was a warning, and it's a chapter Nevada history barely talks about. Come follow the new Nevada history segment of 4th Street Live podcast as we dive into stories of Nevada's past, tales of mobsters, railroads, cowboys, and mysteries around the battle-born state. Subscribe to 4th Street Live podcast for more wild stories and the real history behind the neon. New episodes weekly. The past is never really dead in Nevada, it's just waiting to be told.